minutes, bud.
30 minutes. Got a football game, right? I feel a little underdressed because I don't have I don't even have Phillies green on or something. Can I use this? Can I use this? Okay. Good morning. This place is very dear to my family and I. We spent from 2005 to 2012 here. I call it the Peter Dorfler years, if you were around when Peter was here. This place was a refuge to us when we were going through a difficult ministry time and life turbulence. You know what that's like. This was really a place of still waters that we could come to, and that God used a pastor and a friend. When guys get older, usually they start to slow down, and you just get more ferocious. I don't know what it is. God has put, I've always admired this about Tony, that God has put this ferociousness in his heart. I really had my doubts about if that thing upstairs was going to be anything but storage. And he took me up there, and now it's a kid's playroom, a volleyball room. Tony's just ferocious. And I remember calling him one day, and he was so down, I couldn't even get him to talk. I don't know if you remember that. But God lifted him up, and he's just ferocious in pastoring you and his love for Christ. And so thank you for being a dear friend. I know I can call him at the drop of a hat, and he's going to encourage me. I know about a handful of y'all from back in the day, but this morning, what I'd like to do is not necessarily take a passage of Scripture and unpack it. Tony's already done that. But I want to take some verses about evangelism, and I want to encourage you with it. And I'll tell you up front, if you go away feeling guilty about not sharing your faith, then I've failed. Because that doesn't work. Trying to make people guilty about things and to do that. So I sort of titled my talk this morning, What in the World is God Doing? And a couple of verses, if I can hit the right buttons up here. There we go, Matthew 4:19. Jesus said, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." That's something that God's going to do for us. He puts that within us. There's no doubt in my mind you all aren't Dallas Cowboy fans. There's too much green and Eagle stuff in here. God has put something in us that we will be fishers of men. John 4:23, when Jesus was talking to the woman at the well, he said, "But the hour is coming and is now here when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father is seeking such people to worship him." Let me rest on that. That's evangelism. It begins with what God's doing. And so God is in evangelism. God uses us to seek people and to change them into worshipers. Number one this morning, I want to talk a little bit you find testimonies in the Bible about what God's done and what he's done in people. You know, the most famous one is probably Apostle Paul. This is not going to be anywhere near that level, but I want to share a little bit about what God's done in my life since leaving here. We left here to plant a church in Rock Hill, South Carolina, which is about 35 minutes southwest of Charlotte, North Carolina. And it's about 3 hours from Surfside Beach, South Carolina. That's where the military shot down the Chinese weather balloon. And so that's where we went growing up for vacation every year. But I went there to start a church, and we failed. And I did everything my church plant coach told me to do. I went to coffee shops, I ate lunch in restaurants, I went to sporting events, you name it, I went to it, to try to get a bridge into people that were not believers, that were far from God. I wanted to get off the orthodox real estate, but I couldn't find a bridge to get to people. I'd either find two things. Number one, when I would say, do you go to church anywhere? No. Or, yeah, we go to church in here. What's your pastor's name? and they couldn't tell me, or they were very strong believers. 6 other churches were starting about the same time that we were starting. February 2017 was a very bad year. My father died of cancer. Our church plant closed. Then I had no job. And all that was in the course of about a month. So I started driving for something called Uber. I had to pay the bills. I started driving for a non-emergency transportation company. And I was bound and determined not to give up on this evangelism call that God had put within my heart. I really wanted to go where I came from, back home, and start a church. I'd read all the books about how to turn a conversation from, if you're on an airplane ride or you're at work with somebody, how to turn the conversation to spiritual things. And I say this humbly, I got pretty good at it. And I would give my presentations. I would turn the conversation, and I didn't hear things. I didn't hear things like, "Well, I want to receive Christ," or I didn't hear things like, "How can I become a Christian?" Rather, I heard things like, "Yeah, thank you. I've heard that before." And I thought, I pondered my own heart. I said, "Am I not saying the right thing? I mean, goodness, I've been under a pastor, Tony, for 5 years. I know the message. I can tell it in different ways. I can tell you Evangelism Explosion, Romans Road. I knew a lot of different ways to tell it." Or I heard things like, "Well, I'll think about that. Thank you." Worse, I heard, "Are you trying to sell me something?" Worse, I had a guy tell me one time, another guy tried to tell me this gospel stuff, and it felt like I got hit by a truck. Has anybody ever witnessed to you, not knowing that you were a believer? You remember what it felt like? Worse, a lady at my church, her husband told her, "They're trying to get you to come to their church and give your money so you can pay for their stuff." And that's what I heard. And so, I didn't know what to do. Somewhere in 2018, I stumbled across a guy named Al Dayhoff. He's from Fairfax, Virginia. And it was called the Naked Evangelism. And I thought, hey, let's give that a shot. I've been to the beach and done half naked evangelism. I've been to fully clothed evangelism. Let's go try naked evangelism. What we got to lose? But I misread it. It was the naked truth about evangelism. Okay? So, I started hanging around Pastor Al and learning about evangelism. Let me catch up with my slides. Here's what I've learned. One of the things I've learned. Evangelism must be reimagined by every generation. Each generation has its responsibility to find its way into the wild to evangelize. I live in Billy Graham country. I live 20 minutes from the Billy Graham Library, where Billy Graham's farm was moved from Charlotte out to towards the airport. There's Billy Graham Parkway. If you say evangelism, everybody in my neck of the woods thinks Billy Graham. Well, folks, Billy died, and they buried him. And now we've got to rethink how to do evangelism. Let me kind of come out of the clouds for just a minute. I started this residency with my friend Pastor Al, and I learned this new language. It's like having a new fishing rod and reel. If God's going to make us fishers of men, I feel like I've got a new rod and reel. Things like the wild. That's what we refer to as people outside of the church. Explorer. I love being an explorer. I get in trouble when I go to the doctor's office, and I like to pick up the gadgets and that thing you look in your ear, and I look in the cabinets. My wife says, "Stop it!" I love to explore. I've learned to get outside of the four walls of the church and explore and find out what people are thinking, how they live. Spiritual anthropologists, tattoo research is what we're going to talk about in just a few minutes. A spiritual father. People in the wild love to know that they call me a priest sometimes. I don't wear a little white collar, but they go, if I'm riding in my car and they go, so are you retired? I go, no, I'm a pastor. Oh, let me ask you a question. And I get anything and everything. They love, and there's this sense that they want to be pastored in some way. But let's come out of the clouds for just a minute. Let's talk about what this real. So, let me ask you a question. Who was the first evangelist? Who was the first evangelist? We might say it's David in Psalm 57, where David said, I will give thanks to you, O Lord. This is a good missionary verse. I will give thanks to you, O Lord, among the peoples. I will sing praises to you among the nations. Or maybe, let's say, well, maybe it was Jesus. When he told his disciples, he said, but who do you say that I am? Or it could be, maybe it was God in the Garden of Eden. This is the first evangelist. When God came to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, he simply used a question. Where are you? And what we're finding in our evangelism is that our truthing and telling and presenting is like, okay, I've heard that. Thank you. I don't need your sales pitch. I don't want to come to your church and buy and pay for your stuff. There's this wall. Actually, it's a gap between the world and the church, and it's widening exponentially. So what do? Just quit? A lot of churches have. They've just kind of laid down and quit. Here's what we found in our evangelism research with Evangelize Today. People love to talk. People love to talk about themselves, about their kids, about everything. And one of our core values is that we shift from listening to reply to listening to hear. And so we begin with a question. How are you? Where are you? And we just listen, and that builds relational capital. I started this Evangelize Today residency with Al Dayhoff. He's a PCA pastor down in Fairfax. He actually started a church in a blues bar. He went to the blues bar just to sit and to listen to the band. Every Wednesday night he'd go for 3 years. Finally, one person said, who's that guy? And another guy said, I think he's a priest. People would come to him and just talk to him. The bar became the confessional booth for him. And he just came, he didn't go to present. One person even told him, this was Jerry Falwell's largest fundraiser. This girl grew up in Jerry Falwell's church and in this family that raised all kind of money for Jerry Falwell in Liberty. God bless them. It's a great ministry. But when she got out from home, she left it all. She found out Al was a pastor in her bar, and she almost got so mad she threw a chair at him. I don't want you to bring that boop in here. But after just listening and loving people, he started a church in a blues bar. And he's sort of passing on to us what some of the evangelism things that he's learned. Before I hope this little thing works, but what the first thing Al told me to do, he said, can you see a tattoo? I'm curious. Anybody have a tattoo in here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. Now, I'm going to redeem this, but when he said to me, can you see a tattoo? I said, no, I don't like them. They're gross. Why do people do that? Why do people write? I'm going to redeem it. Why do people write on their bodies? I mean, it's some people that got it all over. And he said, you need to understand that 42% of Americans have some sort of ink on their body, and it's growing. And he said, if you can understand how they function, you will begin to love these. And he said, can you see a tattoo when you're out Ubering? And he said, can you compliment a tattoo? And then finally, can you ask a person, does your tattoo have a story? I got in my car one day. My car has become my evangelism laboratory. I mean, folks, I hear business deals done in the back of my car. I smell marijuana. I don't drive at night. I drive in the morning and drive in the afternoons when people are going home from work. And so I do this thing, and it is so eye-opening at what I hear. The first time I tried this, a guy got in my car, and I saw him peeking out from under his sleeve. And it was 2 circles. And I said, hey, you've got a tattoo. I said, what is it? And he pulled it up. And we'd already had, it was going to be a 30-minute car ride. We'd had a 10-minute conversation about, I was a pastor. What do you think about Billy Graham and Stephen Furtick, if you know who that is? And he told me all about his dad passing away in the hospital, how the priest came and read some verses that he knew nothing about, singing songs that he had never heard, but that was kind of what the religious person does. And I said, so tell me about your tattoos. He said, this is my best friend from high school. We were at a concert one night, and he overdosed on drugs. This is my best friend from college. He was driving in Nashville in the mountains, and he swerved off the road, and he went through the roof. And what this guy told me in a 30-minute car ride, I would have killed to have back planting a church. I couldn't have conversations like that with people. I didn't know how to get into their lives. I didn't know what to ask. With one question, which is the great evangelist, what God did. I said, where are you? What's that about? For the next 30 minutes, he unpacked his life. And at the end, he said, do you think God's trying to get me? Now, I won't tell you what I answered. But tattoos are one of the ways that we're finding our way back into the wild. I've heard everything from, I got drunk in college, this doesn't mean anything. I went to Booth's Corner Friday. I like baseball cards. There's a guy that sells baseball cards up there. So every time I come here, I go to the baseball thing in card shop in Booth's Corner. I was going to stop and get me a drink at the little hot dog stand there when you come in one of the doors, and I saw it. And these things give me energy. Because when I ask somebody, I never know what I'm going to hear. Sometimes I hear, none of your business. I pull out my little card that says, does your tattoo have a story? And they go, oh. And then they tell me. And they tell me the secrets of their soul. This girl had an elephant on her arm. And I said, that's beautiful. Can you tell where I've gone from, oh, I don't like them, to that's beautiful. I said, does it have a story? She said, and a lot of times when they rub it, I know that the person probably passed away. She said, this is for my daughter to remember her. She died of SIDS. Had a little girl's name on top. But that kind of information, it's floods of it. And sometimes they talk for 2 minutes. I went to a coffee shop in Rock Hill, and I asked the barista what her tattoo meant. I had 4 people standing around me, just uncovering stuff. Tell. And it's amazing at what this does. Just ask a question. Does your tattoo have a story? And so, God's question to Adam and Eve, where are you? It's ink. The ink is telling in very profound ways that this, I said it before, 42% of the people in America have some type of ink. If you want to know what's going on the inside, read the wrapper. Let me show you a few of these. Is it going to work? Please? The slide, it's a video. We're doing good on time. Not if it's going to take. I'll tell you why they're trying to figure out my slide. This girl has a picture of an hourglass. She got in my car. I mean, she's got ink everywhere. She's got Jesus on her knuckles. She had this hourglass on her arm. And at the bottom of it are her little boy's hands. And at the top of it, somebody's pouring sand through the hourglass. And I don't know if you can see it, her mother, and these are her own words, my mother passed away in my arms. My best friend passed away in my arms. And I saw my father shoot himself. And that's the broken. This is TattooStoryHunters.com in Rock Hill. This is Jamie. She's got one of the most interesting tattoos I've ever seen. Is it okay for us to put? This is TattooStoryHunters.com in Rock Hill. This is Jamie. She's got one of the most interesting tattoos I've ever seen. Is it okay for us to post this on Tattoo Story Hunters?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. You go ahead.
This is actually a hourglass with my son's hand right here that's dropping basically my life into the bottom of the hourglass.
Uh-huh.
And what's falling in it is a spoon, some prison bars, and a couple other little things, for my past addiction and the prison sentences I've been to. And holding it is my mother's hand and my father's hand. My mom passed away in my arms, and my father actually killed himself in front of me when I was 13. So, yeah. And then I have a crown on top of it all because, I am a queen through all of it,
Yeah.
So that's basically what it is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If I were doing a seminar, I'd just kind of stop and say, tell me what you heard. And that's one of the, that's pretty normal to hear from a person. I find all kinds of things like a girl had written it down. She didn't show me this. I just added something, told me to ask her. I said, do you have any tattoos? She said, I've got one down my spine. It says, it's in Arabic. It says, self-love is the best love. And she just basically talked about how her boyfriend had cheated on her for 3 years. She didn't do her hair, do her nails. She just got in a depressive funk. And she said, somebody told me self-love is the best love. And this is, you hear philosophies of life. You hear protection. You hear hurt. You hear joy. There's a lot of them that are just plain funny. I saw Buzz Lightyear on a woman's leg in Walmart one day. But you hear all kinds of things. And the ground intelligence that we get from this is astounding. And so I've stopped putting guilt trips on my people at Rogers Memorial, my church where I pastor. Here's a question I've used to motivate my people. People are writing the secrets of their heart on the canvas of their skin in permanent ink. Are we listening? You can do this if you'll learn to do this. And so, let me kind of wrap it up and tell you what's going on in what we're doing with the evangelism residency. I've pastored 4 churches, and I can say this: I've gotten tired of trying to make people guilty enough to witness. If you were good Christians, you would go talk about Jesus the way you wear them stinking Eagle jerseys. I don't do that anymore. That's few. I would never say that. I'm just trying to give you a sense for what I used to be like. I've got tired of trying to make people feel guilty about sharing their faith. I got weary as a pastor of asking my people, do you know anybody you can invite to our church? I get these blank stares. We've kind of so insulated ourselves from the wild that we don't know anybody. That's the way it was in my church. I got to get this shoulder shrug. It's like, oh, nope, don't know anybody. Inside the bubble, we become Christians, walking on Christian carpet, talking about Christian things, drinking Christian coffee, eating Christian chili. I'm not demeaning those. Do those things. Invite people to them. But somebody's got to get outside the bubble and say, I'm going to go explore And that's what we're trying to do. Let me tell you about some baby steps of what you can do and what we're doing at our church. I've got about a dozen people in my church, and on a given Sunday, somebody walks up to me and they says, Pastor David, I saw a tattoo this week. I go, oh, what was it? And they tell me what it was, and they tell me the story. Now, is that evangelism? It's better than, can you invite anybody to church? They are making contact with people outside in the wild that they never would have otherwise. The oldest lady in my church went to get her oil changed the other day. The man stuck his arm inside the windshield to put that little sticker in there, and he had a tattoo. And Miss Pat said, my pastor told me to ask you, what does your tattoo mean? And he told her. And she said, he's got one on the other arm. The next time I get my oil changed, I'm going to go ask him about the other one on the other arm. And it's just baby steps. We're one step away from somebody putting the secrets of their heart on their body for us to listen to this. I hear some spiritual things in your story. Can you tell me about that? And we're listening. We're listening. The main core value, let me say it again, shifting from listening to reply to listening to hear. We've got 5 questions that we ask. And I can't give them to you because I got to come back and do that, right? All right. 5 questions. Let me give you the last one. If you could ask God one question, what would it be? And I hear all kinds of things. Why am I here? What's my purpose? We know what our purpose is. Can we have a conversation and listen and hold it and invest enough relational capital in people to move forward? After the questions, we write them a handwritten faith letter. Who gets a handwritten letter anymore? We share the gospel in that way. It builds relational capital. This person really cares about me. They listen to me. It's not like listening to reply is like, okay, hurry up and stop talking so I can tell you my gospel thing. That messes it up. But if we listen long enough, when do we share the gospel? When they ask. And I've got some people in my church, and they're doing this, and their friends and neighbors are starting to ask them, well, what do you believe? I got really tired of this verse. Always be prepared to give an answer for the hope that is within you. I've been a Christian since I was 17 years old, and nobody ever asked me about my hope. Now they are. And it's, do we have the time to listen? What's God doing? He's raising up a group of explorers through what we call Evangelize Today. And I hope that somehow we can be a part of it. I'm a trainer for Evangelize Today. This is the first time I've ever done a talk like this to a group this big. But I'd love for Stillwaters to say, Tony, have him back. I'd love to come up. First, I got 2 grandkids right down the road in North Delaware. I'd love to come back and help and train and love and spark something in here about what God might be doing. Here's your assignment. Therefore, there's now no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus. That means if you don't think in these things, don't beat yourself up. Don't put yourself on a guilt trip. But let me challenge you to do something. I stopped at Wawa on the way up here, and the cashier had a little thing. I didn't get to ask her about it, but they're everywhere up here. I think they're more up here than they are down south. They're everywhere. If you see one, just say, hey, does it have a story? And then listen. That's an image bearer of God. And they have a message that they want somebody to listen to. Will you be the one to listen to them? Let's pray. Jesus, I thank you for Stillwaters, and how you use this church. It's so encouraging to see a bunch of little kids up here praying with Pastor Tony. And it's so encouraging to see what you're doing. It's encouraging to see head nods and hear when we talk about evangelism. I believe that you're doing a new thing in America, and that you're raising up explorers who will take a step out of the comfort zone, the bubble, the Christian bubble, and who'll go out and make discoveries about what they can hear. I pray you continue to bless this church. Thank you for what you're doing here. I don't know if you can make Pastor Tony live to be 120, but would you do it? Would you do it for your kingdom and use these people to bless the world around us? In your name we pray. Amen.